Here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is WeatherBrains episode number 550 for Monday, August 1st. This is the pre-show, the magical part of this program, where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and occasionally say outrageous things. And I have a sneaking suspicion that our television family is joining us. So if you're watching on the television side in the Alabama market, welcome. And I'll give you a little secret. Should we let them in on our little secret? We're actually doing the show on Tuesday, July the 26th.
Ooh. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, but we're transparent here. We wear our heart on our sleeve. We are open. So this is actually a pre-recorded show. Traditionally, for those that watch on television on Monday nights, it is live. I mean, what you see is what you get. But this one is live to tape. So what was that? About every 30 seconds.
Weather message software.
I think it goes. Sounds like somebody's got a bad bird going on here.
Screeching.
Wow.
Actually, the real secret is we recorded 550 of these 10 years ago, all in one sitting.
Yes, exactly. We for 3 weeks churned these things out. No, goodness, I can't believe we've been doing this 10 years. I can't believe I'm 60 years old. I mean,
10, it's almost 11.
Gosh, man, old. It's just, so this
60 is the new 40, James.
I'm starting to go into these Hall of Fames, which is a sign you're supposed to be dead. I mean, when you go in the Hall of Fame, you're like dead. So tomorrow night I'll be in Cincinnati to go into the Theta Tau Engineering Fraternity Hall of Fame. And then in October, I'm going into the University of Alabama School of Communication Hall of Fame. And what's really interesting, really and truly, that doesn't make any sense because with the engineering thing, I was a engineering major, double E, and love Theta Tau, but I never worked in the field. You know, I transferred and started doing weather. And then on the communication thing, I've never taken a class in journalism or broadcasting. And so those two things make no sense.
Have these people ever met you?
No, apparently not. They have no idea what they're getting into. So did
I hear you say a week or two ago that you're going to start regularly working out now that you're 60?
Yes.
What was that about?
I believe if I don't, and my diet's bad, but if I don't start working out on a regular basis, then I got problems because old people fall apart real quick. And so right across the street from this fine facility here, there is a training facility. Now, these guys are mostly pro athletes and high school athletes. They got a bunch of NFL guys down here, Major League Baseball guys, and a lot of the kids that play in high schools, these big high schools around here. But they've developed a program for old guys like me, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'll do it for just like an hour and 15 minutes, and they got showers over there, and it's just right across the street. And with me, you've got to get on the calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen because it will be full of schools and Rotary clubs and senior adult things. But I put it on the calendar, and I will not vary from that schedule.
They have walker exercises for you and things like that?
Yeah, it's shuffleboard, and then they have a big prune pageant at the end of the session.
Do you have the sliced tennis balls on the back side of the walker like you do to help you gain some traction?
Oh, yeah. And I look good. Well, I'll be a chick magnet in those walkers over there.
You know what I'm doing? So I think part of the reason I asked is in 2 weeks we're going to do a thing. Brian Newdorf's been on this program before. He did something a year or two ago. He decided he was overweight, and he put up a Facebook page called Healthy Weatherman, and it was sort of a public way for him to be accountable and lose weight. And he's lost over, I think now 75 pounds over a year or something like that. Yeah. He looks fantastic. He feels better and all that kind of stuff. But he sort of did it in public. And that was the inspiration for what we're going to start in 2 weeks. Last year there was a race, a 5K race here that was it's in its early stages, only like year 2 or 3, but it's a fundraiser for type 1 diabetes, or diabetes in general, but type 1 is the guy that started it, and Matthew's type 1, and so he asked me to come and MC his event, which I did But I got thinking about it, and what we're going to do this year is in 2 weeks we're going to start a public invitation for everybody in town to train along with me. We're going to start a Facebook group, and one of the local sports med places is going to design a couch to 5K for us, and I'm going to participate, and we're going to go day by day. Walk down the driveway the first day, and then jog down the driveway the second day, and we'll build over a period. I think it's 10 or 12 weeks, and so we're all going to culminate in this 5K. But everybody can kind of go along with me, and then hopefully we'll get enough people to run this race, and that's a fundraiser for Type 1. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I mean, I don't think I'll become one of these health freaks because I don't have time. But my goal is to lose 20 pounds. I weigh 200. I want to weigh 180, and I think I'll feel better. And again, they will help with diet, and I'm not going to stop drinking, diet sodas and all this, but you just do things in moderation, and it's fine. I mean,
yeah.
And again, I play tennis on Sunday nights, really hard. I mean, that is a hard workout, but it's just in bursts where this thing will give you more stamina. So, hey, let's get this thing going here. This is not
Brian,
workout brains.
Here's your show title. Is I don't have time to be healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Charles, can you hear us?
I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to stop drinking. ...
Yeah. Hey, Charles, can you hear us?
I can. Can you guys hear me okay?
All the way from Hawaii.
Do you guys got me?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Are you in Honolulu?
Yeah, I'm actually on Ford Island in Pearl Harbor right now, at Pacific Region headquarters.
Woohoo.
Wow. Okay. I got all kind of nosy personal questions, but let's roll this thing. And again,
does that mean the guests are not what we got in the email?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, they bailed on us when we moved the night.
But the Rick, Nate, Aubrey are out, so this is it. So while we get everybody here, let's roll this sucker.
Yeah, Morgan apologizes. He's out too.
Okay, because I did invite him. All right, so here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 550 for Monday, August 1st. 2016, the good old dog days. Hey, this is James Spann, and let me just let you in on a little secret. Hey, got a little secret for you here. Turn up that radio. Shh, don't tell anybody. We're actually doing the show on Tuesday, August the 26th. It is vacation.
July.
Yeah, or what did I say? August. July. Now I'm confused now.
We've jumped into the future, and we're doing a show.
We're good. Welcome from the future.
Rod Serling will be showing up next.
Our guest tonight is Marty McFly.
Dadgummit, I thought I had the Twilight Zone thing in it. I need to rearrange my soundboard. I thought I had the Twilight Zone in here. Anyway, as you see, we're off to a rip-roaring start, but it's vacation season, and you've heard the boring story before, but I take 3 weeks a year, one in June, one in early August, and then at Christmas. So this is my second of the year. But we're trying to stay consistent, so the show is going to be released in the wild on the regular schedule early Tuesday morning in the pre-dawn hours, the audio-produced show, and it's going to be run on television Monday night, and but for those that are watching live, it's a Tuesday night special. We love these, and I've still got my light burned down in here, Brian. Brian and I share this little closet in here, and quite frankly, I look better in the dark. I'm just saying, a lot better. So Brian Peters is the internationally beloved meteorologist, former WCM, the National Weather Service for many years, warning coordination meteorologist. Now he gathers those big government pension checks. Brian, how are you?
I'm fine. I just wonder if I'm ever going to get through to you that there are no such thing as big government pension checks. Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. So
that's all right. Are you really going to be in Cincinnati tomorrow night?
Yes.
Or is it Thursday night?
Let's see. Right, Thursday. But the deal is,
you gave me a scare there for a minute because I was thinking nobody's going to fill in for you tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, I'm working the 27th. I'm going to Cincinnati for this little fraternity thing. I was in an engineering fraternity. That's Thursday night, and then Friday we go over to Chicago. I have never been to Wrigley Field, and
Great
so,
place.
And you know what's weird, Brian? You go to Chicago a lot.
Yes,
And
my
I've been
daughter
to
lives there.
Yes, I've been to Chicago a lot, but only in airports. And that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
count. Wrigley Field's cool.
So you know, we're
Have
gonna,
your tickets already?
Yes. Now we have tickets for the Saturday game. They're playing the Mariners. And we got some really nice tickets for Saturday, but I think we're going to be there in time for the Friday game. They have a Friday afternoon game. The flight over to Chicago is really quick, you know, and we're going to O'Hare. And here's the other thing we're going to try. We're going to try Uber. Has anybody on the show used Uber?
No.
No, but my daughter is a big fan.
Yeah. So you know, I like the idea, and come on, let's try it. So I got my Uber app, and we're going to be taking Uber drivers in Cincinnati and Chicago, and so anyway, that's always fun. We go to a random ballpark every year.
She's a big fan, so I think you'll find it works out very well.
And it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But the cool thing, you know exactly where they are. I mean, you get with that app, it's very well done. And you know exactly where they are, and they know where you are, and I think it'll work out well. So anyway,
so when they kidnap you, then the authorities can follow you on the app.
Exactly, exactly. They'll have. My wife's not going. That's one reason we're doing it. She'd rather have a car and a driver and one of these things. But it's just me and our 18-year-old son. Is roughing it. So we're gonna have a good time. Kevin Selly is.
I wouldn't call Uber roughing it, but
well, how do you know? You never know. You never know with Uber. I just have a funny feeling it's just the box of chocolates. You just don't know. You might get a Mercedes. You might get a Hugo or something.
Roughing it with Uber. There's your show title right there.
Yeah, Roughing It with Uber. So, Kevin, have you ever been taking an Uber? Or maybe are you an Uber driver?
I don't even think they can pronounce Uber in Wichita Falls. There are none of those here. I have a Chicago question, though, for all you baseball guys. Isn't Wrigley Field the one where on the outside, on all the rooftops, these building owners have put up stands?
Right.
I was reading about that not long ago. It's fascinating. Go look for Wrigley Field on Google Maps and drill down and look around the streets that surround the outfield. And it's fascinating because these buildings have put up bleachers.
Yes.
And the fascinating part of the story was eventually this has evolved over a number of years, and people wanted to watch from the rooftops and so on and so forth. And now they've got these giant bleacher things on top of these buildings. And Wrigley Field and the Cubs have gone in now, and people started charging for it. Because there are seats, but the Cubs organization said no, you can't do this, and they're taking some percentage of the money that people are paying to sit on these rooftop bleacher seats.
And then they just started putting up huge scoreboards that block their view.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I thought that was an amazing story. I mean, people getting up there and little American ingenuity, and here comes the baseball club said no, sorry, you owe us a cut of this money.
Wow. Well, this will be my
Which
first
has nothing to do with weather.
At Wrigley, yeah. Welcome to Baseball Brains. And let me also say, due to the odd schedule, we have a lot of our folks out. Rick Smith has been on vacation. He's just getting back. He'll be back with us on the next show on Monday, August the 8th. Aubrey, I think, has some weather issues tonight. And Nate had some family issues. So it's just an intimate gathering here. So, Bill, why don't you introduce our guest before he bails on us?
Yeah, James, and if you looked outside his window, you probably would probably question his sanity if he didn't bail. But he's the warning coordination meteorologist for the whole Pacific Ocean. Wow. Charlie Woodrum, thanks for joining us at the last minute tonight. Now, I probably overstated that a little bit, Charlie. Talk about your new role and what area you cover there in Honolulu.
Yeah, so I work. Great to be back with you guys here. I think I was last on about 4 years ago. So that was back when I was a forecaster in Pittsburgh, and now I am the warning coordination meteorologist.
Uh-oh.
Didn't pay the bill, and now he's cut off.
Uh-oh. Somebody at NOAA decided that they didn't want him talking about this.
Yeah. The GFS data is coming in.
Yeah.
But we've got. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we lost you for about a minute, but you're back loud and clear.
Okay, well, that's what you got, I guess, when you're coming all the way across the Pacific Ocean. But but anyway, I was just saying it's good to be back with you guys. And my job as a Pacific Regional Warning Coordination Meteorologist is covering the outreach, preparedness, decision support services I oversee the Weather Forecast Office in Honolulu, the Central Pacific Hurricane Center, which was very busy here over the past weekend, the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, PTWC, and we also have a forecast office in Guam and American Samoa, and several other smaller weather service offices that are tied into Guam as far as exchanging information. So we've got several smaller facilities out there throughout the Pacific region, and so I oversee that whole region for outreach and preparedness.
So tsunamis, hurricanes, volcanoes, papayas, avocados. This isn't West Virginia anymore, Charlie.
No, it's not. I just ate my first fresh avocado that I had picked right off the tree and let it ripen last night, and it's pretty darn good.
Well, that's exciting. So you just went through Darby, crossed over the islands this week. Talk about its impacts on the islands and then just hurricanes in general in Hawaii.
Yeah, Darby made landfall as a weak tropical storm on the Big Island, about 5 miles from where Azelle made landfall a couple years ago. Impacts were flooding. There was some flooding on the Big Island in Maui, some minor wind damage on the Big Island. A couple of small trees came down, but some of the bigger impacts were actually felt on Sunday night here in Oahu. We had a flash flooding event here where one of the major interstates here, H1, was flooded and closed for a good chunk of the night on Sunday night. So that was one of the bigger impacts, was the flash flooding that inundated several vehicles. There's been several homes here on Oahu that have been impacted by that flash flooding as a band set up over Oahu.
Here's a dopey question. When you get a tropical system approaching, is there an increased problem with surfers?
Well, yeah. I mean, you do get more surfers that want to go out, and they get excited by the increased surf heights and tides. And, of course, we tell people not to go out there and to use caution. And you've got the Coast Guard closing their ports and telling all their vessels to come back to port, and yet you have folks that want to go out and ride the waves. So
they are they allowed to, or do you have to reel them in, or what happens?
Well, I mean, really, we advise people not to go out there, and what happens is, you really can't control someone from doing that completely, and so what happens is, and what the big threat is the rip currents really get strong, and you can only do so much to prevent people from doing the right thing, and some people are just stubborn, persistent, and really want to go surf those waves, and so the problem with these kind of events is it gets real choppy. It's not just those big breakers that you see that the North Shores are so famous for out here. You get shorter periods, and the waves are more frequent, and it's a lot more choppier and chaotic, and it makes it not that ideal for surfing anyway, but certainly people want to go out in it still. Just to say they surf during a tropical storm.
Right. I interrupted you, Bill. I'm sorry.
No, so Charlie, talk about that for a second. I've always thought that I understood that with an approaching tropical cyclone, you'd have longer period waves, so they become shorter in this situation. Why is that?
So relative to what we're used to, what they're used to out here, with the longer period swells, they're actually relative to those longer period swells where you have those bigger, what could be 20, 30 foot plus waves. They're shorter relative to that than when we have the big surfing competitions up on the North Shore.
That makes sense. So a lot of people are surprised that Hawaii doesn't have more hurricanes, I guess, because of its positioning. But talk about how many, on average, the state gets a year typically, and how long it is between big storms.
Yeah, I was talking to the warning coordination meteorologist at Central Pacific Hurricane Center, and he came out here in 2007 and said he didn't get his first landfall here until 2014. So it took 7 years for him to get one, and I've been here for a month, and we got one in a month.
That's a bad sign, Charlie.
You know, and the islands are, if you think about it, are very, in the overall scheme of the Pacific Ocean, are very small pieces of land, and so it's not that often that you see landfalls. And most people point back to Hurricane Iniki as the big impact to Kauai and to parts of Oahu as well. So not that frequently do you see landfalls here. I mean, just a few. I mean, we've had 2 in the last couple years, but that's been a lot actually for this area.
So did the rains help the drought situation that you've been in recently?
The rains, given that the rains were falling all across the islands, we see most of the rainfall on the windward sides normally, with a lack of rainfall on the leeward sides of the islands, where you see more drought. There was rain all over the islands, and so the areas that are in drought did help them out, thankfully.
So I wondered that when we were in Colorado last week or 2 weeks ago. You know, how far over, you know, does that wetter area extend over the crest of a mountain range? You know, where does the footprint of the rain shadow begin? Is it within a few miles, a few dozen miles, a few hundred miles?
Yeah, well, so it all depends on the elevation and the topography, the orographic setup of how the winds come into the mountain. And yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm still learning a lot about that myself here. I just got here a month ago, and it's still a lot to learn about as far as how the specific climatological setup is with the different rain shadows and everything. But just kind of how we communicate it to the public is, you know, you generally have the trade winds here in the Hawaiian Islands that are coming from the northeast, and so those come up against the mountains, and the windward sides, which are facing those winds coming from the northeast. That's where you see that lift from the topography from the higher elevations. That's where you see most of the rainfall, and then you get the opposite effect on the other side of the mountains. But yeah, towards the higher elevations, even on the leeward side, you get precipitation that comes over there as well. Before you see that rain shadow. I mean, that's what is observed here in Oahu.
So Charlie, talk about working with the CPHC last week with Darby.
Yeah, I worked 39 hours of overtime since Thursday, 12-hour shifts starting on Thursday. They split it up at Central Pacific Hurricane Center and worked 2 shifts. They worked 2 12-hour shifts. And so I was working with the Central Pacific Hurricane Center WCM, Chris Brenchley, and their Director of Operations, Tom Evans, on the decision support services throughout the event, where we were briefing the state emergency management and also the county level of emergency management, which they call civil defense out here, giving them daily briefings, telecons, actually video teleconferences, to give them updates on the storm and what the impacts were that they could expect, which was great that we were in constant communication with them.
So is the operation there fairly similar to the operation at Miami with the National Hurricane Center?
It's actually a whole different setup because you have the weather forecast office in Honolulu, and there's 4 desks there that operate around the clock all the time. But the Central Pacific Hurricane Center only spins up when hurricanes come into, or when any kind of tropical system comes into the Central Pacific. So when that goes to the west of 140 west, that's when Central Pacific Hurricane Center actually spins up a tropical desk. And if there's multiple storms, then they might spin up a second desk. Or if it's a major storm, they might need a second person there and spin up a second desk. So they have more staffing at the at the forecast office and Central Pacific Hurricane Center, but that's to help with the surge of having to spin up the Central Pacific Hurricane Center when there's a tropical system.
So yeah, that's very interesting. So it's when they cross over 140 west that actually Honolulu picks them up from Miami, huh?
That's right. That's where they get them from the Eastern Pacific, which the National Hurricane Center covers. And then the National Hurricane Center is year-round. They do a lot of their focus in the off-season on outreach and preparedness, whereas the Central Pacific Hurricane Center spins up and it comes off that core staffing from the Weather Forecast Office. That's how they staff the events. And so it's not a year-round presence as far as the Central Pacific Hurricane Center goes. It's not someone sitting at a tropical desk year-round. It's only event-driven.
So is the Tsunami Warning Center sort of the same way, or is it a full-time staff deal?
So I just met with the Tsunami Warning Center for the first time today. I just came out of a meeting with them, so I learned a lot about how the Tsunami Warning Center works. And it's interesting because what they do is they have someone who's on standby who works actually is there for a full 24 hours. And then they have a watchstander there who comes in and shift works. So they'll have a day, an evening, and a midnight shift that's rotating around. And so what happens is you have your normal shift worker who is there in operations, monitoring the earthquakes that come in, determining if it's a high enough magnitude earthquake to potentially generate a tsunami. And if it's a really high magnitude that really needs more attention from a second person, they'll actually go get that person, or that person that's on standby will get alarmed. They're in the building as well. They're not necessarily in operations, but they're for 24 hours. They're ready to jump into action if they're needed. And it's an interesting setup because as part of being on standby in that 24-hour shift, you can actually go and rest and go sleep for a while to make sure you're well rested and you're kind of hanging out, doing research, doing whatever you need to do to pass the time, unless you're needed there in operations with the watchstander.
So it's more like a firehouse, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to compare it. It's like a fire department for tsunamis.
So are those guys specially trained for tsunamis, or do they do other duties as well?
Yeah, so it's a lot of oceanographers, seismologists that have a whole different background. You're not going to see a meteorologist at the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, but we do plug in with them because of the communication being so important with the media. And the Weather Service, our Weather Service forecast officers are the ones that are disseminating that information that comes, whether it be we can disseminate information about earthquakes, and we can, more importantly, a lot of times when those tsunami warnings come out, we put out the information with those tsunami warnings from our weather forecast offices.
So Charlie, how long has it been since there's been a major tsunami in Hawaii, and what are the sort of benchmark events in the past history? Have you studied those yet?
So I'm starting to learn a little bit more about those. So I'm not going to try to come off as an expert on all the previous events. I was just learning about some of them today. But as you look back here, just in the past, going back 15 years here, you go back to the Sumatra, Indonesia earthquake and tsunami that resulted there, and that happened in just about less than 15 years ago now. Then more recently in 2011 we had the Japan tsunami, which was a huge deal. And so they actually have 12 staff. They used to have 6. They spun up to 12 staff members because of the need that was seen from recent tsunamis. There was a lot of interest in that to staff up their office. And so we've got the National Tsunami Warning Center, which is up in Palmer, Alaska, and the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, which is down here in Honolulu, Hawaii. But there have been tsunamis here in Hawaii. Hilo particularly has had tsunamis that have killed people, one in the 70s. And so there definitely have been tsunamis that have killed people on the Hawaiian Islands. Thankfully, none recently. There have been some scares with tsunami warnings out for the Hawaiian Islands, but nothing noticeable and nothing really, no high impacts as far as no fatalities or injuries here in the last really since the 70s.
So Kevin's got to go do his Fox shows right now, but he asked us to ask you what kind of severe threats, ever tornadoes in Hawaii, Charlie?
Yeah, actually, believe it or not, you can get a supercell thunderstorm here in Hawaii. We've seen supercell thunderstorms with tornadoes. More commonly, you'd see a water spout here, but you can have large hail here in Hawaii too.
So you do get some severe weather. So that's a little bit of a reminder of home, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. Doesn't happen all that often. In a trade wind flow, the more frequent, more common, probably about 90% of the time flow that we get here on the Hawaiian Islands. Normally, trade wind showers, heavy rainfall is not going to be a tall enough thunderstorm to generate lightning. it's not going to be a thunderstorm at all. It's not going to be tall enough. It really won't just have the ability, the instability. The instability is not there. It just can't grow enough to become a thunderstorm. So you don't see lightning out here all that much.
Hey, Charlie, what's that peak out there where it snows sometimes?
Mauna Loa?
That's Mauna Kea. Actually,
Mauna Kea,
it snows on top of Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea. Mauna Kea, I went up there in March. It's 13,800 feet high there on the Big Island of Hawaii. And we do see snow there. It actually can snow there any time of year. I was up there in March. There was a dusting of snow on the ground. It was 32 degrees up there at the top of Mauna Kea. And down in Hilo was 81 degrees. I went out to a lava flow, an old lava flow. Later that day was 87 degrees. So it really shows you the just contrast in different climates that you see on the Hawaiian Islands, particularly that Big Island. You've got Mauna Kea, and then you have Mauna Loa, which is almost as tall as Mauna Kea, and it's the largest volcano in the world. As it goes underground, it's 50,000 feet high, counting the part that's underground.
I wonder, I know you're new there, I just wonder what the lowest snow elevation on record in Hawaii is.
Yeah, I will have to find that out as we learn more and more about it. But there's times, there's an observatory at about 9,000 feet on Mauna Kea, which is where you can get some of the best, as far as astronomers go, some of the best observations in the world. And they'll have to close that road off there a lot there at 9,000 feet because of the snow that's going on in the higher elevations.
So you talk about volcanoes there. How big of a threat are those active volcanoes in Hawaii, Charlie?
So you've got Kilauea, that's an active volcano that's had a lava flow here. Thankfully, it hasn't been a threat to any homes recently here in the last month. But just in the past couple years, the town on the Big Island, Pahoa, was threatened by lava flow, and there were some residences that were damaged from the volcano Kilauea. And then you also have Mauna Loa, which is not currently active like Kilauea is, but we could see a major eruption from Mauna Loa. They say, the geologists here say, that could possibly happen in the next 10 years, actually.
Well, that could be devastating, I suppose.
Largest volcano in the world. Yeah, it could be a really major eruption. In a previous eruption, the lava had almost gone into Hilo, and so obviously if it makes it down into Hilo, that could be huge impacts there on the Big Island.
Wow, that's really scary. Now, Charlie, I know you're a big sports fan. The time difference has to be interesting when you're looking at things from sporting events to political conventions, et cetera, et cetera. How does that change people who live in Hawaii from people that live on the mainland?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a lot more laid back as far as making sure you catch things on time as they're happening. If you've got an evening baseball game or right now, then that's starting at about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. So a lot of times you're still at work when these things are going on. Come college football Saturdays this fall, we're 6 hours off out here in Hawaii time this time of year. We don't change our clocks here, so it becomes 5 hours when you guys all turn your clocks back here in the fall. But we got 6 o'clock college football kickoffs coming up here on weekends. And so my wife promised me, I got married at the beginning of June, and my wife promised me, we did our own vows, and in her vows she promised French toast casserole for 6 a.m. kickoff. So I was like, yep, sounds good. I found the right woman.
There you go, James Spann. There's your tailgate food for your football games this year.
Exactly.
French toast casserole. So you'd think with some of these games that start at 11 o'clock, that's probably what the team is eating at 8:30 on Saturday morning. So Charlie, talking about sports for a minute, you've obviously focused on large venue safety, and especially as it comes to football. Talk about your thoughts on that matter. Have we improved? Are we getting better? Are the things we've done over the past decade making the situation safer? Where are we still vulnerable?
Yeah, from when I talked to you guys last about 4 years ago, I feel a lot better about where we stand as a community for lightning safety for outdoor venues. recently there was a meeting. It's there's a group called the National Center for Spectator Sports Safety and Security. It's called NCS4, and they held a forum that got together a lot of different athletic directors, emergency managers, and there was a representative there. We were on a conference call together from ESPN, and I talked to them and I said, what do you guys use for your threshold for your cameramen out there that are going to be out in the elements? And they said, if lightning's within 8 miles, we tell them to lock their cameras in place and come down from where you're at if there's lightning within 8 miles. And so it was really good to hear that one of the leaders in sports broadcasting coverage has that criteria in place, because that's so important that the broadcasting, the covering of these events, that they're giving the right information and that they're the leaders that others will follow. And so to hear that ESPN was doing that was very, very good to hear. And so many universities across the country have taken the guidance that's come out from NOAA and also from the NCAA Sports Medicine Handbook. Our guidance says, you need to call for a delay if lightning's within 8 miles of a thunderstorm, at a bare minimum. And more recently, the NCAA handbook had said, in the past it had said, if lightning's within 6 miles, you need to have your stands clear. That was confusing to a lot of venue managers. They'd wait till 6 miles. But really, it inferred that you need to call for a delay well before that. Well, they've changed that to 10 miles now with the NCAA, and so to see them change that in their guidance that all of their sports managers are following all across the country, it's been really good to see organizations like ESPN and the NCAA start to really change their criteria based off of our guidance from NOAA.
So Brian, you work a lot of big events in Central Alabama, and obviously lightning's an issue, spring and summer especially. It can be any time of the year, but how do you handle lightning when you're advising these big venue managers, like at the SEC baseball tournament or a golf tournament or a concert or a music festival?
Initial notification at 20 miles, and minute-by-minute updates when it gets to the edge of the 10-mile or within 10 miles. So I'm using 10, and if they want to use 8, that's fine, but we end up using 10 most of the time.
So James Spann, are you still around? I know you're showing us the 1946 tsunami. James may have.
Yeah, I was going to ask for. I'm not showing underwear, by the way, for those watching this. What is it? Every time I pull up a website, I get an underwear ad.
I mean, you've been buying underwear online, James. What's the deal?
That's horrifying. No, I don't. So and again, I don't want to put Charlie on the spot, but this is a very interesting story. The mystery of the 1946 tsunami in Hawaii, and then this was caused by a pretty sizable earthquake in Alaska. I want to say it was 7.1, but most of the geologists believed that a quake at that spot of that magnitude would not be able to generate such a large local surge in Hawaii. I want to say the surge was like 55 feet. So I was just going to say, you ever heard of this thing, Charlie? Have any ideas?
I haven't done all the research on tsunamis yet. I've got so much to learn when you come out here, and especially with Tropical Storm Darby having hit here. That's been the big focus, has been the tropical side of things so far. So I really can't speak to the tsunami stuff at this point.
Look, I don't want to put you on the spot. It'd be like, me moving to Denver and people ask me about the history of Denver snowstorms, and I have no idea. But to me, that whole thing is interesting. And, it seems one guy on Twitter recently, and I tend to retweet the tsunami messages, and traditionally what you'll see after an earthquake is, tsunami not expected. And some guy said, is a tsunami ever expected? And of course I told him yes, but it just doesn't happen that often. And but again, I would be the same way. I know enough about tsunamis to be dangerous, so I try not to dabble in them.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things that a lot of people learn right off the bat that they don't realize is that they think that a tsunami is just one big wave and that's it. And it's actually, you find out that it's actually a series of several waves that are rushing in, and the water level just can keep rising and rising with several waves. Or some, they might see one wave come through and they think that's done, and a bigger tsunami wave comes through after that. So that's one thing we really push out here with education.
Yeah, and it's just I need to go to tsunami school or something, because that is a fascinating subject. Changing the subject, and I know you're not necessarily directly there at the local office, but do you know anything about the relationship between the broadcast media and the Weather Service there? You know, we're pretty tight with Weather Service chat. How is it there?
Yeah, you know, I haven't met the local broadcast meteorologists here yet, but I did get to interact with some of the local TV stations. We had 2 different stations that were coming to the Central Pacific Hurricane Center doing interviews over the weekend and really last week leading up to the storm. Great relationship set up there with them, where some of them, one station decided they wanted to send a lot of their field reporters out to the different Hawaiian islands, and then they also had someone in our office as well. So it was nice. They had a full coverage of the event from all different facets. They have NWS chat out here that the media was in over the weekend for the local office as well. So there is a relationship that's there, and so I'm just learning more and more about our. I haven't met the broadcasters out here, the meteorologists yet, just some of the field reporters so far. So they were great to work with over the weekend.
I wonder how they handled what was it, Iniki? Was that the big one back in the early 90s?
Yeah, 92.
I would imagine they probably went wall to wall, don't you think? That was a big deal. That was nasty.
Oh, yeah, and what's fascinating about Iniki is because it was only a month after Hurricane Andrew, a lot of people don't really talk about Iniki, and it was a really strong hurricane that hit Kauai dead on. And you see that famous footage of the home with the roof being peeled off from Iniki, but really it should have gotten a lot more coverage and attention, but it didn't because Hurricane Andrew was a month before.
Yeah, I think that Iniki was September of '92, and Andrew was August of '92. But I would imagine, sometimes it's just people think, well, Hawaii's, so far away and they're not interested. I've never been there. I mean, Bill, have you been there? Anybody else?
Only
on the show?
Only once.
James, it sounds like you need to come out for tsunami school.
I need to go to tsunami school in Hawaii for about 3 months. I'm going to requisition that request for my employer here and see make that happen.
NWA annual meeting, Western Region. So James, Charlie was talking about lightning in large venues, and you just moderated a huge panel for the AMS summer meeting in Tuscaloosa just a couple of weeks ago. Anything interesting come out of that discussion that you have for Dr. Laura Myers?
I think the one problem we have, it's inconsistency when it comes to big venues and how to handle lightning and severe storms. At that panel discussion, I think everybody does a great job, and these were people there represented professional baseball. They represented the Southeastern Conference, college football. We had some representatives that involved automobile racing, stock car racing. And there's no perfect answer, obviously. There's no perfect solution. But it seems to me that all of those people are certainly on the right track. But I think in some other parts of the country, maybe they don't pay attention as closely as they should. And here we've come a long way. The Southeastern Conference, in my opinion, has gone from worst to first. You guys call that disaster with the SEC basketball tournament. I want to say that was 8 years ago, where a tornado went through downtown Atlanta, and they were playing at the Georgia Dome, and nobody knew anything. I mean, nobody knew anything about what was going on there. But now it's a well-oiled machine. Their rule is 8 miles, and if there's lightning within 8 miles, I mean, they will stop the game. The players go in the locker room, fans go in the concourse, and that's for everything: tennis, baseball, spring sports. I think the biggest challenge probably out of that discussion is NASCAR, where you might have 180,000 or 200,000 people at one of these NASCAR sites. And, we can talk this stuff all day long, but there's no logistical way to really keep all those people safe during a tornadic situation, frequent lightning. That's a nightmare, Charlie. I mean, I don't know if you thought about the NASCAR stuff, but that's a problem.
Yeah, we in 2014 actually there was a tornado warning while the Daytona 500 was going on, and that was one of those deals where thankfully Daytona Speedway I know is very very spun up as far as having a plan for weather. They actually reached out to me and to another staff member as far as help with their lightning safety plan, and they're being very proactive in thinking about these things. So it's good to see a venue manager so proactive with lightning safety and with any kind of hazard. The question is, where do you put all these people? That is what constantly comes up when you have such an open air venue like that. The best place for people to go frequently is their cars because they're somewhat close by. A lot of times these venues aren't going to have enough shelter for everyone to safely shelter in a completely enclosed structure, which makes you safe from lightning. So sending people to their cars, to larger vehicles like buses, that helps out. But for starters, for a venue manager, they at least need to know where they can send people to help mitigate chaos. And so I don't know if all the NASCAR venues have done that yet. NASCAR has its own crew that watches NASCAR goes around all the races, makes the calls for when they delay a race. So it's something they definitely got to think about all the way around. I'll say the Indianapolis 500, Department of Homeland Security is at that event, and they asked the Weather Service to provide them support every year for the Indianapolis 500 and all the events going on, because there are so many other federal agencies that are involved that need weather information to make decisions. So it's really interesting. The relationships vary by venue, certainly.
I'd say one of our biggest problems, Bill asking about that panel, it's these nonsense statements made by play-by-play guys on ESPN and CBS and ABC and NBC. And here's one of my favorites. One guy was calling a football game, and he said, "There's some really loud thunder here, but the good news, I can't see any lightning, so apparently there's no lightning involved." So, what's the matter with this guy? And then, my buddy Vern, you guys know Vern on CBS, the college football guy?
This last year, he's finally retiring.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and Vern's a nice guy. There's nothing personal here. I mean, Vern and I used to work local, media in Dallas a long time ago, but gosh, he says some of the most idiotic things when it comes to weather. I remember one time we had forecast a very strong possibility of afternoon storms on a college football day. A good chance we'll get a passing shower storm. You'll probably have a delay, but you'll get the game in and all this. Well, so sure enough, a shower passed through at this venue, and he said, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's what a 20% chance of rain looks like." Now, where did this jabroni come up with 20% chance of rain? So he looked at some crap app on his phone, and that's just immediately how he apparently gets his weather information. Sometimes these guys need to just stop talking about weather. Sit the next play out. Just don't talk about weather. Tell them what you know and don't tell them what you don't know. But those guys drive me crazy, and I think we should reach out to them, not in a hostile way, but hey, let's go through Weather School 101. They ought to listen to your reports, Brian. They ought to go back and listen to every WeatherBrains 101 from the get-go and get some smarts. But that's bad information they're passing along.
Yeah, that's something I've realized recently too, James, is we got to have a way to educate the broadcasters. The weather community needs to come together, and we are coming together. There's a committee now with the AMS to look at venue safety particularly, and we need to find the right connections in the broadcast community to train or at least educate the sports announcers out there for these major events, because so many people are out at their tailgates, at home, however they're watching the game, and they take this as gospel. They believe what the broadcaster's saying, and if they're not giving them the right information, misinformation, you get more of that chaos and people not doing the right things to go to safety.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like sometimes you're trying to discredit us. And if you would just take the time to come down and talk with me. I'll give you a really good briefing and stuff. But it's so easy to get so frustrated. You want to just come in there and do it in a hostile way. But I think if we'd be willing to work together and just these guys aren't meteorologists. They don't want to be. But I thought Eli Gold made some great comments. He is the voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He says he doesn't talk about it. He knows nothing about weather. And he might, if there's a lightning bolt, he'll say, I see a lightning bolt, but he doesn't go beyond that into this idiotic commentary that he doesn't understand. So I appreciate about Eli. But
I thought you'd take him out behind the stands, though, James, because before the games he always says the weather guessers predicted.
I'm kind of on the payroll. I have to be careful out there. By the way, let me just clarify. I'm not on the payroll. I don't get paid a dime for what I do at that venue, but we're all kind of family, and I have to be very careful because I don't want to get in trouble.
There you go. Well, Charlie, part of your move to Hawaii, I think, was based on what your wife is doing nowadays, huh? Is that true or not true?
Well, my wife actually is taking the leap of faith and coming out here looking for a job. So she's excited to be coming out here, and definitely a big change for both of us. But we're happy to be doing it together. That's for sure.
Well, it's a beautiful place to be, that's for sure. So, talk about your stint at headquarters, Charlie. Any interesting things? I know the McKinsey report is running around. Lots of speculation about that these days. Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to spend 3 years at National Weather Service headquarters. I did a 2-year rotational assignment where I worked for the Weather Service director for a year, and then was a liaison between NOAA leadership and the NOAA administrator and Weather Service leadership. So I got to see the whole broad perspective of both the National Weather Service as an agency and then NOAA as a whole, all of the NOAA line offices that come together, and got to see just, everyone kind of has their perspective on what they think headquarters is like from the field, and really seeing it in person and seeing all the budget decisions that have to be made and everything up front like that. It's really eye-opening, and it really shows you how hard-working and caring the leaders are in our agency about the field and about providing our partners and providing the public with quality weather information. And I spent my last year as the Decision Support Services Program Manager at headquarters, and really got to help lead a program of how we're going to be delivering weather information to our partners in the future. So, that's really exciting. Obviously, the McKinsey analysis ongoing as we look at our workforce and look at our field and how we could be potentially changing in the future for the Weather Service. It's really exciting stuff as we have someone from the outside look at how we could be as an agency in the future.
Well, there's some exciting times coming up, and I know there'll be some interesting information coming up shortly. So anything else you want to share with us tonight, Charlie, before, I guess it's this afternoon where you are?
It is. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's getting later your guys' time. But I want to point out, we've got the Lightning Safety Toolkit. NOAA's got this National Lightning Safety Plan for outdoor venues, and so all the weather enthusiasts that might listen, whether you're a professional enthusiast, however you're connected to weather, check it out. It's at www.lightningsafety.noaa.gov. It's called the Lightning Safety Toolkit for Outdoor Venues. If you're not that many venues have completed it yet. I think we're at about 16 venues across the country that have done it. I just had another one, Old Dominion University, reach out to me here in the last day on wanting to have a lightning safety plan and asking what they need to do. But it's not just the Weather Service. Anyone who's a meteorologist can say, hey, go to their local venue and say, hey, do you have a plan for weather safety? Because the Weather Service has this lightning safety plan out there, so you guys should look into this. And so we want to make sure everyone's aware of that. It's a plan that lays out a template of what from the beginning of the foundation of developing a lightning plan, everything a stadium would need to do to be organized for that. And we actually have plans for golf courses and lifeguards, beach patrols, and other communities as well. So there's a lot of nice resources on our lightning safety website to help meteorologists work with venue managers or emergency managers to develop plans for lightning safety for these really vulnerable outdoor venues.
And, and going beyond that, one of the things that really has bothered me this summer, we have these cameras on the Gulf Coast, and it seems to me that, Charlie, the people on the beach are just not going in when there's a thunderstorm. We had a 12-year-old girl that was killed on our Gulf Coast last year. What can we do about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because a lot of beaches can be open to the public and don't have lifeguards at them, and so trying to just educate as much as we can and getting the lifeguards and beach patrols on board as much as we can. We worked on the lightning safety plan for beach patrols and lifeguards with the United States Life Saving Association, and working with organizations like that and working with your local, with your local lifeguards and educating them. That starts because they're leaders that people follow, but then there's still going to be folks that go off on their own, and just public education and pushing lightning safety awareness, letting people know that on a flat surface like the water, you're going to instantly be the highest point out there if you're in the water in the ocean, and electricity can travel quickly through that water as well. So that's a huge threat. So just kind of putting an emphasis on that threat's important.
And one more random thought, how is social media use within the weather enterprise that you've noticed out there so far?
So particularly with lightning or just in general?
In general, I would say the Honolulu Weather Service office and the weather community there.
Yeah, so social media is certainly something that is being used, Twitter, Facebook, and it's something that is a really handy way to get graphics out there. And I always think it's cool because different people come in with different perspectives and can share ideas, and it's great to see what they're doing out here with sharing information like they were with Darby. And there's always new things and new technology coming out. One way to monitor social media from a forecast office is using things like Hootsuite or TweetDeck to try to monitor all the different things that are coming in, and utilizing that as a situational awareness tool is something I know they do here, which is really helpful in staying on top of things as weather events are evolving.
And I've said this before, and I think it's true. I think the Weather Service is now in the broadcasting business. Some of these Weather Service offices have 100,000 likes on their Facebook page and 80,000 followers on Twitter. You guys are in the business we're in now.
Well, Facebook and Twitter are just a great means to disseminate information to the public, and so many people, especially the younger demographics that fit so well into social media, they eat it up. They love it. They share it. They retweet it, and it's a great tool for us to disseminate information for those that don't want to take the time to learn some of the older things. Go to our webpage, set up a phone alert, or get a weather radio. A lot of people just don't want to take the time to do that, and so at least we can get to them on social media.
Of course, now the young people have abandoned Facebook because the adults are over there. Now they're on Snapchat, and now they're getting really mad because the adults are following them over on Snapchat. So they'll go to something else. We're going to keep chasing you guys, all right? Just you go and we will follow. But the one thing I ask at a lot of these conferences, I'll say, how many of you use Snapchat? And nobody uses Snapchat. And I say, well, if you want to reach a 16 to a 22-year-old, they're not on Facebook. That's ancient to them. They don't do that. They might be on Twitter. They're probably on Instagram, but they are all on Snapchat. And you can do stories with video and put in images and tell a really nice weather story and reach that demographic. And my position is their life not precious? Is their life not important? They're not going to watch television. They're not going to go to some Weather Service website. They're going to be on Snapchat. And I think that's an effective tool. And the next, people say, well, I don't have time. Well, I don't have time either. You look up busy in the dictionary, it says see me. I have to make time because it's my job to connect with all demographics. Notice Kevin's head is about to explode. He has duct tape wrapped around his head right now because he doesn't want us giving everything on, and that's a whole different show we'll do later. But let's take a break. We're going to do Professor Peters. Tony is not going to have a report this week. We'll come back with the Weather Roundup, picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
There is no good news in the lightning statistics department this summer. As we begin the last third of summer, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, the umbrella agency of the National Weather Service, reports that there have been 20 fatalities as a result of lightning in the United States. What makes this number even worse is knowing that every one of these was preventable. Florida leads the nation with 5 deaths. Louisiana comes in second with 4 deaths. Alabama and Mississippi are tied for third with 2 deaths in each state. And completing the list with 1 death in each state are Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Missouri, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. 11 of the 20 deaths have come in July. And probably not surprising is that 80% of the deaths were, and you guessed it, men, and only 20% ladies. You can interpret that number just about any way you want, but there is probably an element of bravado since guys are not supposed to be afraid of anything. But when it comes to man versus lightning bolt, my money is on the bolt every time. Now, there is a myth that when a person is struck by lightning, they remain electrically charged. This is simply not true because the lightning is simply using the body as the conduit between the positive and negative charges. There is no electricity left behind, so a person struck by lightning is no danger to the person or persons offering aid. If a person is struck by lightning, immediate medical care is necessary to save a life. Cardiac arrest, burns, and nerve damage are the most common occurrences in people struck by lightning. But with proper and immediate care, which may include CPR, victims of a lightning strike can survive. The best course of action, of course, is to give lightning all the respect it deserves by not being stupid when lightning is in the vicinity. As the little ditty from the National Weather Service goes, when thunder roars, go indoors. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
We are releasing this show into the wild on Monday, August 1st, and quite frankly, it's kind of hard to do a weather roundup because we're doing the show on Tuesday, July 26th, and we're not that good. But, you know, I guess the theme, at least, you know, the tropics, and it's been hot and humid, and, you know, I don't even want to get into that. It kind of, you know, gets a burr up my backside. You know, you turn on these networks and it's a heat emergency and 80 jillion people are in a heat crisis and, you know, it's the end of the world. When I was growing up, they called it summer. And I don't know how we've gotten to this. And again, like I said on, you know, on some of the shows, we've had heat emergencies in the past. 1980 was a good example. But this is no heat emergency. It's just summer.
Sounds like you're overheating, James. Maybe you need to go inside an air-conditioned building.
Exactly. Drink some water, go into an air-conditioned room, and
you're wearing dark-colored clothing. You shouldn't do that.
I know. I've not been reviewing my heat tips here lately. No. Yeah. Oh, boy. You know, I don't even want to go down that path. But, no, the summer of 1980 was a disaster. I mean, my concern, and I say this all the time, there are real concerns. There are real issues here. Number one, it's leaving babies in the back of a car.
Amen.
That's got to stop. And that's more of a societal problem. You know, I mean, we've had hot weather since the planet's been here, and it just seems like we have this increasing problem with that. And whatever it takes, and I've seen some really good advice on, you know, how to remember that you've got an infant in a car seat in the back.
Yes.
But people just need to come up with their own system that works for them to be sure that you know. And I understand I'm exhausted most days. I'm so tired, I don't know what planet I'm on. I can understand, you know, in some cases, a lot of people cannot, but I can. But you've got to come up with a system. The other problem, it's people that can't go into an air-conditioned room, that have to work outdoors. They're roofers. They're working on road crews. And heat stroke can kill you. And I think it's wise to teach people what is a heat stroke and what are the symptoms and when do you go to the hospital. And then the other problem, it's lower income and elderly people that don't have air conditioning. And, it's hard to believe that there are people in hot places in the summer that don't have air conditioning, but it's true.
It's
and
true.
For a lot of these older people, they're afraid to open their windows because of a crime problem, the threat of a break-in. And that's how so many people died in 1980 in my market. And we have to watch out for elderly people, low-income people that don't have a cool place that they consider to be safe. So there's some issues, but I'm not going to treat our viewers like idiots and tell them to go in an air-conditioned room. If we treat the people that watch these newscasts with respect, then just maybe they'll respect us. And I tell people all the time, they think we're idiots. I mean, you've got to have respect both ways, and I'm not going to play that game where you do these idiotic heat tips. So anyway, sorry. The Atlantic Basin is still quiet. This is kind of kicking off the beginning of the core of the season in the Atlantic, August and September. Brian, where are hurricanes?
They're in the Central Pacific and the Eastern Pacific.
Charles owns them. Charlie owns them all.
Yeah, they're all out his way.
And we'll see if we can, and all it takes is one. We'll see if we can get something to break through the dry air. And Kevin, it's about 118 in Wichita Falls, right?
We've had a break the last couple days. We did 100 plus over the weekend, but mid-upper 90s the past few days, but we'll creep back near 100. 8 days at 100 plus so far this month. But the average, as I mentioned last show, is 98 in Wichita Falls this time of year. So it's pretty hot this time of year.
Kevin, it's hard to think of mid-90s as being cooler. I'm sorry. It's just a perspective thing. It's just hard to look at mid-90s as being cooler.
Yeah, we're trying to be optimists and say, oh, look, it's cooler.
So Bill Murray just called me and Brian and Kevin honey in the chat room here. I'm very disturbed. Very disturbed.
New show title.
So
I see this now. Wrong. You're always typing in too many chat rooms. I see.
I spend way too much time with you guys.
Brian is hanging out in multiple chat rooms, and I don't even want to go there. So we do a little feature called Song of the Night every night during the 10 o'clock news on Periscope, which is it's just silliness, and it's our creative outlet. But every night I used to go back in the back, and the producer, Brian, you know her, Ainsley Allison.
Yes.
She during the sports and weather, she would be on a website called smockmonkey.com. And she would order these. It's very precious little clothing for little children, like toddlers and very small
like
children.
Hers.
Very cute. Yeah. So I went in there the other night. Ainsley's now working the afternoon shift, and the lady back in the back, she said, "I don't look at smockmonkey.com. I'm looking at adamandeve.com."
Yeah.
Whoa!
And I didn't know what that was.
What is it?
Well, I went to it, and the first thing advertised was, I better not say that, it was sex toys.
You're probably lucky that Worst didn't pop up on your tsunami story there just a minute ago.
Just say it's an adult thing.
So it's
Brian's making it his pick of the week right now.
People are calling me honey in chat rooms, and they're telling me to go to adamandeve.com. This whole thing is just going down the tubes here.
I asked you to be on Dancing with the Stars today, James, and you couldn't do it.
No, and even if I was available, I'm not going to dance anymore. I did that one time, and I have retired. That was humiliating. It was the lowest moment of my life.
Wow.
I think Megan Thomas breathed a collective sigh of relief when you turned them down, probably.
No, I'm just telling you, if you search James Spann Dancing with the Stars, maybe the video pops up. It was horrifying. Oh, it's just
a broken pelvis.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down that path. So we are going to see if we got any picks of the week here this evening. And again, we're doing this on a Tuesday, and we're just coming off a Monday show. So let me do a quick little screen share for those that happen to be watching, and let's see if anybody has seen this one.
That is fabulous.
And of course, I thought it was fake. The first time I saw a still of this, it was like some idiot with some photo editor put the moon in front of the Earth, but it was a real image. The Deep Space Climate Observatory is about 1 million miles away. I think it's 950,000 miles away, and the moon moved in front of the sunlit side of the Earth last month, and you can see the moon moving across the Earth there, and that is, you're seeing, for those that are watching, you're seeing that, but that is just too cool, and you can learn more about the location of that. And of course, obviously, the full disk images are just stunning that comes off this thing. But it's the Discover satellite, DSCOVR, the Deep Space Climate Observatory System. So, but anyway, there's my pick of the week is an article kind of explaining that whole thing. So, let's see. I've got my button on the foghorn. Brian, have you got a pick for us this week?
I do.
Oh, good. What do you have?
And Charlie's already talked about it, but it's lightningsafety.noaa.gov. In honor of the WeatherBrains 101 tonight, I figured this was a very good pick. There's a lot of great information on that website. And for everybody, whether you're just going to the beach or you're at a big venue or you're running a big venue, there's an awful lot of information on that website. So that is my pick of the week.
You know, J.B. Elliott and I almost died together from a lightning strike. This was in 1995. We had a hurricane called Opal that came through the Gulf Coast region. And traditionally, with these warm core systems, you don't have a lot of lightning. And the core of the system, the circulation center, was passing east of where we are. And JB and I went out back, and we worked at Channel 6 at the time on Red Mountain. And
High Point.
Yeah, lightning hit that big WBRC sign.
Ooh.
And the hair was straight up on our arms. And you felt it. I mean, you felt that singy feeling where you feel like you're getting your finger in an electrical socket and you're just bracing for the worst. And I thought we were dead, but it hit the sign. And JB didn't say anything for about an hour. He was white as a sheet. And JB's got something to say over everything. That was amazing.
Did you hear the electrical snap before the thunder?
Oh yes. Oh,
that's
it was
chilling.
So loud. It was
chilling.
So loud.
Yeah.
It was just like your ears hurt. Your ears hurt.
That happened to me on the golf course when I was in college, and Buddy and I were playing, and it was the last hole, and we'd walked off the tee box, and it started to rain, and we didn't know anything at the time. We were kind of hovering along the side of the fairway, and we'd stopped for a second, and we heard, I kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye, but I heard that snap about 5-10 yards behind the tee box where we had just been standing. And I'll never, ever forget that sound, because it's zap, pow, and then the thunder comes. And I just kind of froze, and then a second later when I regained myself, I saw my friend. He just took off running into the woods. There were golf clubs flying out of the back of his bag, and he ran about 30 yards and realized he had no idea where he was going, and stopped, and we ran inside. But yeah,
for those watching, we have a picture of Kevin when he was in the golf course that day.
I didn't know he had sent that to you. I got to get that off.
Yeah, boy, that's a classic photo from the movie Caddyshack. That's the first thing I thought about when I thought about that scene. All right, so again, the link will be up on WeatherBrains. Kevin, you got a pick for us.
I'm going to go with Bloom Sky, and I think, Brian, what episode did you say you reviewed that?
That was episode 516.
And I had started a conversation with them about doing something on TV here, a little Mesonet, and it kind of went south with regard to the sales department here, but we were going to have them on the show, but they've come out with a new, they came out with a unit that has a camera on it and temperature and some other things, and now they've come up with a second unit that has an anemometer and a rain gauge on it, and but I've been engaging with those folks in some conversations about maybe being able to do some things on TV, and I really like them. They seem like smart, interesting people, and so I'm gonna promote their site, bloomsky.com, and we'll see if we can get them on the show here before too long.
Awesome. All right, Charlie, you still here? I think Charlie bailed on us. I don't know. He's probably golfing in a thunderstorm in Hawaii or something. I don't blame him. Oh, you're back? Okay, good. Have you got a pick for us this week?
I think I already gave it to you with lightningsafety.noaa.gov, but a lot of people aren't as aware of us out here at Pacific Region, so I'll give you prh.noaa.gov. Come check us out. We've got a lot of smaller forecast offices that people aren't so aware of out here in the Pacific.
Awesome. Well, and all these links will be on weatherbrains.com. Bill, what's your pick of the week?
I'll take the foghorn, James, and then ask for your indulgence. 7 weeks from now, we'll be in Norfolk, Virginia for the National Weather Association annual meeting. And the show, well, I guess actually, 7 weeks from tonight officially, but we'll probably be doing the show the previous night on that Monday, September 12th. Probably from the Spirit of Norfolk, I hope, and Broadcasters Dinner and the Icebreaker should be a fun event. I hope that comes true. So we're working on that right now. But I want to push the Weather Fest on Saturday, September 10th, at the Nautica Science Center, downtown Norfolk. We've got about 40 exhibitors, expecting somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people to come to the event. And Charlie, I'll ask you, if I can't have you for lightning venue safety, who can I get come talk about the lightning safety kit at Nauticus that day?
I know a couple people that might be close by. I don't want to commit anyone, but it's not too long of a drive down from Silver Spring, so I think we might be able to get somebody for you. We'll loop back on that.
That'll be great. And Brian Peters will be wearing the Alley Skywarn costume that day. It'll be perfect. So
Absolutely.
Oh.
So come out and see us. We'll be doing some sort of WeatherBrains booth there at the.
Does this mean it's been almost a year since we all met in Norman?
Yes.
Well, almost 11 months because the meeting moved up a month this year. So last year it was in October. For the rest of time, it will be in September. So
if you notice, Kevin, Bill didn't invite Chuck Doswell and James Spann back out there. I mean, we've been blackballed.
If I had one more person ask me if you're coming, I have a button I push and it gives a recording. So.
That was so awesome at that live WeatherBrains we did.
That was fun.
They had Chuck and I pushed down at the end of the table like the two 7th grade bad boys. And
you had to sit next to the teacher, Brian.
Yeah, and then you had Dr. Scala and all the pinheads down there on the other side that were the serious ones. And what's funny, one of those young ladies we grilled, I mean, Chuck just roasted her. Yeah. I mean, he ate her eyeballs for breakfast. She's an intern here at the TV station this summer.
No way.
She's a student at Valparaiso University up in Indiana, and she didn't have the nerve to tell me it was her until like a week ago. She's been here since like June. She said, "Remember when you and Chuck got really mean to that little college student? That was me." So I really felt bad.
Funny. Yeah, she just put sugar in your gas tank, James. So.
Yeah, I'm about to say something bad will happen before we leave here. And the internet memes are flowing tonight. Goodness, I don't know who has time to come up with these things. Have you seen this one? This is one that just popped up tonight. Wow. I want to know who has the time to do these memes, and of course the political guys are on right now. But anyway, I have a funny feeling we're not going to go on television, Kevin, until midnight Central Time tonight.
Oh, that's right.
I just have a funny feeling looking up to see who's speaking right now. And again, I am very apolitical. They are all bags of hot air, Republicans, Democrats, and they like to talk. And the guy talking tonight, he might be on there for a long time. But still, I've got to put on my TV clothes, and I've got to be ready just in case. WeatherBrains is a weekly show. We are traditionally on Monday night. We do it live at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. If you want to watch it, the video version, it's live.bigbrainsmedia.com. And thanks to our viewers that are watching on conventional television as well. The email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. If you've got something to ask or a comment, we'd love to hear from you. Our social media accounts are on the website. And all the show notes, all the links, picks of the week, everything we talk about. Brian does a great job with that. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and God bless.
Have a great vacation, James.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you all August 8th.
Thank you, Charlie.
See ya.
Right, bye-bye.
I sent you the forecast for Chicago for Saturday.
Yeah, I like it. Perfect. See you guys.